I cried 5 times the day that we moved my daughter Sammy into college this week. I cried twice before we even stepped onto campus. The third time was when I bumped into an IKAR member who was coincidentally moving her own kid into the same school, who shared with me that she too hadn't stopped crying all day. She had just come from a quick Target run where she was standing on line, and right in front of her was a little boy, maybe 6 years old, the kind who would run up here for the candy, with his mother, and he was beaming because he was holding this giant Nerf toy in his hands. And she heard the mother say this, "I promise that I will buy you a Nerf toy this year and next year and every year forevermore, as long as you promise to never ever get big and never ever leave me." And the boy said, "Deal." And they had a big hug, but this mom who was standing behind them had big tears. And that mother, the one who's moving her kid into school, and I, and so many others who were roaming the campus on move-in day, were dealing with the wondrous and not uncomplicated blessing of children who may have once promised that they would never ever get big and leave, but now they were, and they did. And so we tried, and we often failed to hide our tears as we tucked in those extra large twin dorm sheets and KonMari'd the sock drawer, as we set up the new desk lamps and realized that we didn't bring enough hangers, as we worried about how our kids' room in the party dorm that boasted what David and I noted was a kind of prison-forward aesthetic was uncomfortably close to the boys' bathroom. And we noticed that the windows didn't really open in that room, and that the AC, and thank God for the AC, power blasts into exactly the wrong part of the room. And we cried quietly behind big sunglasses as we witnessed our kids bravely introducing themselves to strangers who lived across the hall. And we prayed to God that this world, this broken, angry, anguished world, would be kind and would be gentle to our children. And we wished, and I prayed, that that could be true for all children. And even in that moment of sadness and vulnerability, realized what an incredible privilege it was to have the opportunity to bring my child to this moment of transition. For David and me, as you know, this was not our first rodeo, and I want to say that it doesn't get easier. And so despite the 100-degree heat, which with the humidity feels like 150 degrees, as we approached the airport, I was still feeling deeply tethered and not at all ready to leave one of the people I love most in the world alone in a city that I do not know at all, with streets and trees and landscapes unfamiliar, releasing her to find her own way in the world. It's Parshat Eikev today, and part of Moshe's long, sometimes meandering farewell speech to the children of Israel, Bnei Yisrael, appears in this parasha. As I read his words this week, I feel simultaneously a deep frustration with Moses, Moshe, and also a deep affection, a kind of parental resonance, because he too faces children who stand on the threshold of the next chapter of their lives as they prepare to enter the land without him. He too is a little bit rambling, a little bit incoherent, filled with excitement and trepidation, gratitude and sadness. Moshe's whole message in this parasha seems to be a jumble of uneven and often internally contradictory emotions. Listen to this. Don't worry, he says. God will love you and bless you. You won't even get sick because God will make sure that all illness is removed from you. And also, if you're not careful, you will face only grave danger. Don't think you are immune from that. Here's another one. In the land, when you arrive, Moshe promises, you will lack nothing. And also, that abundance will pose a singular threat to your integrity. So watch out, or you will lose yourself completely. Also this one. You're going to have to be strong to conquer your demons and your enemies. But don't ever believe that your success comes from your strength. It only comes from God. You should eat and be satisfied and bless. But don't be haughty. You don't deserve any of this. I really feel for Moshe. I know he has a lot to say, and I understand why his thoughts are scrambled and unsteady and deeply emotional. And on weeks like this, it's comforting, I have to admit, that Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't quite know how to hold some moments that are just too daunting, terrifying, wondrous, profound, like the moment of separation between a parent and a child, between a leader and a people. So instead, he just says it all, hoping that Bnei Yisrael will be able to discern what matters most from this jumble of words and warnings, blessings, and instructions. I, too, left my kid a far too long, far too earnest letter. And while I could attribute most of my tears on move-in day to the overwhelming sense of pride and joy and appreciation and gratitude and excitement for my kid, the very last cry as we stood at our departure gate had a slightly different tenor. This time, I recognized that these were tears of regret. I feared that I had somehow failed to say to my child what she needed to hear, what mattered most. That the 8-page letter that I wrote to her was less profound treatise and more desperate word salad. That I had missed my chance to provide the guidance that she would need to navigate the years ahead, to be launched into the world. Perhaps it was the experience of attempting my own farewell speech to my daughter that compelled me to slow down and read between the lines of Moshe's confused prescriptions. And as I did, I saw a hidden moral message that I pray that both our kids and we will take to heart in this devastating, confusing, uncertain time. An urgent message, a prescription for how to live in a pained and complicated world, a clarion call for everyone, and maybe especially for us as Jews. So here's what I saw. 2 conflicting images that demonstrate perhaps the most confounding of contradictions. Image 1, at the beginning of our parashah, the people are about to enter the land. There they will find enemies who are intent on destroying them. And the instruction is clear. You shall devour all of the people of the land that the Lord your God delivers to you. You shall show them no pity. Here, Moshe is a very certain parent, one who knows that his children will face challenge and threat, one who is determined in his righteousness to construct a reality in which not only is the enemy defeated, but in which our hearts are sealed to their suffering. Their pain is not our concern. We are on a just and righteous course, and we will not be distracted. Lo tachos eincha alehem. Show them no pity. From the shoresh chus, compassion. There's no room for compassion in a battle for our survival. And yet, just a few chapters later, a very different image emerges. Here, Moshe instructs, "V'ahavtem et hager, ki gerim ha'item be'eretz Mitzrayim." You need to love the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. This is one of the 36 times that we read in the Torah of our obligation to protect the stranger, the vulnerable one, and not only to protect them, but also to love them. And this, for the most human reason of all, because we too were once strangers. It is our shared experience of trauma that binds us one to the other. Who better than we to understand the grief, the heartache, the terror experienced by the stranger? This is our eternal responsibility. Now I ask you, how are we to hold the contradiction between these 2 conflicting parental messages? Is Moshe's dream that his children will enter the land and become no regrets, no surrender Jews? Or that they will enter the land and become your heart is the heart of the stranger Jews? And what happens when this is no longer a theoretical machloket, a theoretical dispute, but the very heart of a piercing and urgent rift in our people today? When our Jewish family is torn asunder by the fault line, between those who see compassion itself as a form of not only weakness but betrayal, and those who cannot bear the dehumanization, who insist that the real betrayal is the failure to uphold the dignity, to honor the humanity of the other. How are we to resolve this dilemma? What is a child to do who, having entered a new landscape, carefully unfolds and reads the letter that her parent so earnestly wrote to her, seeking guidance on how best to live? And here it is Moshe himself who whispers the answer that Bnei Yisrael needed and that we too need today. In chapter 10, verse 16, Umaltem et orlat levavchem. You need to cut away the thickening around your hearts. Circumcise your hearts. Enough with this stubbornness, says Moshe. Now, what does this mean? Rashi and the Ibn Ezra explain. This is a call to cut away the barrier, the cover, whatever it is that blocks your heart from feeling, that blocks you from seeing and understanding even the most painful of truths. You think your thick skin is protecting you, but in reality, you are only distancing yourself from another person's humanity, and that will only diminish your own. Only when you open your heart, only when you take the risk will you be able to truly love, and will you be worthy of love. So now I find myself reconsidering my own farewell note / dissertation left on my child's desk, which perhaps had carried more truth in its folds than I even imagined. In fact, I realized that maybe Moshe and I were trying to say essentially the same thing. Here's a little bit of what I wrote to my kid. Remember that you are not here on this campus to defend the policies, the rhetoric, or the actions of any person or any state. You must never defend the indefensible. You are, however, here to show the world what a Jew looks like. And to do that, you must open your heart. Ask questions, get uncomfortable, share from your heart, your love for our people and our tradition, your understanding of our history. Share what Judaism is. Share what Israel means to you and to our family and to our people. Share your dreams for a future of peace and justice for everyone. Speak humbly and listen deeply, and don't be afraid to be wrong. That is what we call learning. Remember that we can grieve another person or people's losses and our own at the same time. In fact, we must. This is what makes us most human. And all of this, I promised her, all of this will be far more effective than any counter-protest. Now, in some ways, the deepest message of Moshe's prolonged farewell to his people, which comprises most of the book of Devarim, the book of Deuteronomy, is the wistful recognition that he will not be able to accompany his children, Bnei Yisrael, on their journey, and therefore he will not be able to protect them. This perhaps is the hardest parenting lesson of all. When I first became a parent, my sister-in-law, Paulette, said that having a child is like wearing your heart outside your body. You know that the thing that's most precious to you in the world is now precisely what you can't fully protect. Your life, Moshe is saying, your future depends on outcomes that I cannot control. As much as I yearn to, I cannot keep you from harm. All I can do is promise you that I love you, and that even when I'm no longer beside you, I'm still right here. That is a message that I feel deeply at the end of a week of many sweet tears. But I am heartened that Moshe also modeled what it looks like to leave our kids with a reminder not only of our own limitations, but also of their agency. I can decide, and you can decide to open our hearts, to feel deeply, to love earnestly. And that is not only what we need, that is what this fragile, anguished, beautiful world needs. And so may we all strive for it. Shabbat Shalom.